Eye for what's at stake in global politics and your source for the social, economic, and political impact of public policy on the African American community. Your host, Kelly Michael Williams, is a political strategy veteran with an undefeated campaign record and the political experience that spans nearly 3 decades, from Mayor Willie Brown in California to President Barack Obama in our nation's capital. So get ready for a fresh and honest approach on the politics that affect you and your family the most. Now, your host, Kelly Michael Williams.
For joining extended broadcast right here on Black Politics Today. I want to thank you for joining us again, as you do each and every week. And as I do with each and every broadcast, I always pause and thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for just blessing us and to have this broadcast, for my guests especially, because without them, you would have to deal with me with my monologues. And you know how I get with my monologues. I get ranting and raving about everything that's going on that's anti-Black or anything else of that nature. So thankfully, we got my experts tonight. You don't have to listen to me rant and rave, go on my tirades that I usually do. But I want to thank them especially for joining me tonight, because so often there's so much going on. And as we were talking earlier in the back room, we were talking about there's so many things that are going on in our lives, except we don't have to always think about politics. But tonight, we're going to think about some politics. And tomorrow, we'll go back to our families, our friends, our respective others. We'll draw the line in the sand, and we will not cross it, or we'll cross it however we please. So tonight, I just want to say thank you, Jesus. Whew. Because otherwise, you'd be hearing me saying a whole lot. But I got a dinner out of it, so it's okay with me. It's okay with me. Beyonce would have to come up with a new song, to the left, because I would have went far left. Okay, I would have went far left had we not been able to pull off what was able to be done this past week on Tuesday. I started getting a little nervous in my spirit when I was watching Tuesday night, because I was looking at Minnesota. We was able to get that. That's something we were supposed to get. But then I started looking at Florida. Florida didn't call the way I thought it was going to happen, even though I knew it was a hard hill to climb. I thought it might be close. I thought it might come about, and it didn't. So I was really concerned about Florida. But I was even worse. I guess it made me feel even worse because it was like 300 votes. And that was just ridiculous. I didn't think it should have been that big of a gap. I thought it should have been closer than that. But that just lets you know that, hey, if you don't do your work, if you don't put time in, you don't get time out. So you don't get the results from it. So I started feeling a little bit better as the night went on and things started coming about. But there's a true reality that we must face in this country, and the Democratic Party needs to face it as well. And that is the reality that, one, Donald Trump has a stranglehold on the Republican Party and on white America. And what does that mean given his history? This man got 70 million votes. He got, 6 million? 6 million more than he got in 2016. That's a lot of darn votes. And you know what I want to say. So it says something. And so now we have to look at these 270 electoral votes that have been banked, 279 that have been banked, and some other things are coming, I'm sure. We'll get to Georgia and Arizona. What happens in North Carolina, who knows? But the idea that we're going to file lawsuits and pretend that we can actually take this thing to court is something that I'm questioning why the GOP party is allowing to occur. And why they're encouraging and supporting this, knowing that there's no legal basis for this to ever occur. And what really gets me is I always, and I'm glad I have my guest on tonight. But a lot of things that bother me with the GOP is the hypocrisy. And one of it is they would rail. I remember, and I don't know about the rest of the country, but in California, the GOP would rail against Democrats who supported the trial lawyers. And the trial lawyers were the people who would have these lawsuits against personal injury. So they're personal injury attorneys, and they would say that they're filing frivolous lawsuits, or if you slip and fall at a place of business and you sue, they'll call them frivolous lawsuits. And I'm looking at these lawsuits, 7 of which have already been dismissed, which is frivolous. But they're encouraging this, saying that there's a legal path to the presidency. Now, a legal path to the presidency rather than a democratic or lower democratic democracy path to the presidency. And I'm thinking, why are you guys supporting this? Why are you guys allowing this to happen? You don't have to be beholden to him any longer. But the reality of it is they do, because he got 70 million votes, and they are concerned and scared about what's going to happen in their districts. And now you got 2 races in Georgia that's coming up in January. They need those 2 races so they can have a majority. Because if they get 1 and it's 1, it's a split, it's a tie. So Democrats are going to try to get those 2, and the Republicans, I know Mitch McConnell is going to spend a whole hell of a lot of money trying to get it. So the question is, what's next? What's going to happen now? So joining me tonight is to analyze and decipher what's going to happen, where it's going to be, and what's going to happen is returning guest, adjunct professor and host of Inside the Issues with Wilmer Leon, Dr. Wilmer Leon III. My brother's coming back to us once again so he can set us straight. Also joining us a little bit later is going to be Dr. Maya Cummings. She's the president and CEO of Global Policy Solutions, and she just released her late husband, Congressman Elijah Cummings' book, We're Better Than This, just last month. So you can find that, and she'll talk about that as well. But also joining us is my good friend. He's been on Black Politics Today since we got started, actually. Ralph Chittum. Ralph Chittum Sr. is the principal of Red Elephant Consulting, a grassroots inner city consulting group seeking to educate and recruit African Americans on conservative values over to the GOP. And last but not least is Representative Jason Fields. He is representing 11th District of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we're going to talk to him about Milwaukee and Wisconsin and that battleground state. And they just barely made it by 20,000 votes, and that was a slim margin because that was not even, even with that, it was just barely getting by. So I want to welcome everyone to the show. If you want to join the conversation, give us a call at 516-590-0143. That's 516-590-0143. Wilmer, let me start with you, my brother, and ask you, what does, give him the whole celebration on Tuesday, everything that happened on Tuesday. I was going to ask Maya, but I thought I'd come to a mail and ask you, what does this moment mean for Black America, and to have a VP, the first African American and Asian Pacific Indian, as a president, as a VP, as the vice president in this moment? What does that mean for us as Black men, but especially as Black women?
Well, I think it's symbolically, it's a phenomenal accomplishment to not only to have come from President Obama to now Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. As a parent, for me to be able to turn when President Obama was elected, for me to be able to turn to my son and say, that guy looks just like you. That guy has hair just like you. That guy, he's you. Symbolically, I remember when I was, I think my son was probably 5 at the time. And I remember when I was 5 and 6 and being told, you can be anything you want. The world is your oyster. You can even be president. Wink, wink. But now that wink is real. And so the same thing for Kamala Harris, whether you're a young man or a young lady. There's when you do your homework, when you put the work in, there's nothing that you can't accomplish. If you're African American and can become president or vice president in this racist country, then that lets you know that the sky is your ceiling. But now, with all of that being said, what tangibly, from a policy perspective, what is this going to mean for us? Exactly. And that's where we have to get in the game. Having her there will mean absolutely nothing if we don't force her to represent the interests of the African American community. We didn't do it with Barack Obama. We were so happy that he was there that, 8 years later, folks were walking around with empty champagne bottles, still celebrating. And even he said, y'all didn't demand anything. And so we have to hold our feet to the fire.
Democrats across the board didn't stick with him in 2010. And I mean, as a normal thing, didn't show up, didn't show out, didn't do anything. And then was complaining the rest of the time when they didn't have control of the House or the Senate, when they could have had control of both of them. Had they shown up, possibly they would have had that, because at that particular point in time, the surge was still on. Even with that Tea Party movement, you still had that surge on to support and to push. And I think had he really pushed forward some policy issues that he had talked about that first 2 years, it would have galvanized some of those people to keep moving and keep showing up. Ralph,
two that just quickly, if I may.
Go ahead.
One is, I think at that point, there were still a lot of Democrats that were angry with him because they felt that he basically took Hillary Clinton's lunch money, and that was supposed to be her job, and that he jumped the line, took her lunch money, and got the popsicles. And when she got there weren't any more popsicles left. The other thing is that he didn't fight. Right. He didn't fight for anything.
Right.
And he rolled over. Uh-huh.
Yeah, he was too busy trying to compromise.
That's all he did was compromise.
Yeah.
And John Boehner had his number, and John Boehner played him like a Stradivarius. And so, and then he had his chief of staff, his key advisor, Valerie Jarrett, who all she did was tell him, don't be too black, don't support. You don't want to be in that lane. And so all of that, I think, contributed to
there was that you defer. So let's make it calm. Let's make it good. Let's not go too far, because then you don't get that second term, and you're not going to really get out there and get it.
And Joe Biden is chattering the same foolishness now.
Unfortunately, right? So Ralph, what does it say for America, or more important, does this say that America is supporting this ticket, or are they just accepting it? Is it more of a, we wanted to get rid of Trump, so we'll accept it, or is it that we're supporting it given the 75 million votes?
I'm honestly hoping that this election, the people who voted for the Biden-Harris ticket were voting for it more because they hated Trump than they actually supported Biden and Harris. Because if you look at the history,
did you say you're hoping that's the case, or are you saying that was the case?
I'm hoping it was the case, because if Black people actually prefer Biden and Harris over Donald Trump, it reveals that the Black community is really completely ignorant of history. Joe Biden, the Clinton crime bill, Kamala Harris, her incarceration rates of Black males, Kamala Harris withholding exculpatory evidence from 2 Black men on death row that wasn't released until after they had been executed. So I hope that their maybe election, because it's still up in the air, was more a result of hatred towards Donald Trump than actual support of Biden and Harris policies. Because if it's actually support of Biden-Harris policies, what you just witnessed was the biggest case of Stockholm syndrome I have ever seen in my life.
You see how I'm waiting on that one, right, Jason? You see how I'm pausing on that?
I love Ralph. I think it's, and I sent you the results here in Milwaukee. And so I think it was a combination of some of that stuff. I mean, look, I came out in 2019 and endorsed Biden, not because I know black people, I know Milwaukee, not because there was a great, there was a great choice between the two. And Ralph, I'll say this, because a lot of conservatives, Republicans always throw out the crime bill, particularly black ones. But y'all forget, it was black people who supported that stuff too. Joe Biden wasn't the only lone white guy that supported that stuff. It was a whole bunch of black people that gave him cover. Now, whether we like it or we want to really talk about that stuff or not, that's a different issue. Now, at the end of the day, I think you had a lot of people who, look, they weren't necessarily sold, right, on Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. But the idea that you can choose Trump over those two, I don't see how you can logically make that argument, Ralph. I just don't see how you can make it, because here's a person who wasn't qualified to do the job. He wasn't qualified to do the job. And whether I like Biden or not, let's remove all of that. At the end of the day, I'm looking at somebody who I know can do the job versus somebody who can't do the job. Somebody who has proven that he can't do the job.
Now, I'm going to say this. The crime bill didn't lock up black people. Okay. The crime bill put in place the apparatus to make the streets safer with 100,000 officers on the ground across the country. What happened with that crime bill, which all of us know, was that the states got a hold of it and used it to then lock up black folks for non-violent offenses, which the crime bill was supposed to support, was violent offenses. And then they put them in there because the 3 strikes law they had started in California got lumped into that bill. But let's look at the Defense of Women's Act in that bill. Let's look at the juvenile courts that was in that bill. Let's look at the drug courts that was in that bill that did not materialize because the states took that out and did not use that. But like Jason said, pastors and the Black Caucus supported the bill. But then, of course, if you do the crime, you're gonna do the time. So it wasn't the crime bill that arrested black folks. It was the crimes they did that arrested black folks, and they went to jail for it. Now, on Kamala Harris's side, there's still no proof that she was withholding evidence of this, evidence here, evidence there, because of the crime lab doing whatever they did. That was not her. That was the crime lab. Secondly, one thing I know she did do in California was she also put in alternative uses for drugs and juveniles so that they didn't have to go to jail or prison. They went to alternative, because remember in 94, I think it was 94, all the prisons changed from rehabilitation to punishment. And that's when they also started privatizing and they started making money from it. So what happened was, especially in California, I think we talked about this either on my last town hall or even last week, maybe, how in California, we went from 32 jails to 80 jails. I think it's 80 jails or 56 jails we have right now. Wilmer, correct me if I'm wrong. And
I don't know the current number because I'm not home anymore.
Right. Those are privatized prisons that are locking up us for any and everything that's going on. But now, as to Jason's point, Donald Trump just didn't want to do the job. He didn't know how to do the job. He didn't care about the job. He cared about making money. And he did everything he could to make money. Now, we could say, and we can debate and probably agree that a lot of us may not necessarily think Joe Biden is going to do all that much for us. But we can surely say that Donald Trump surely wasn't going to do any more for us than he already said he was going to do and hasn't done anyway. So I'm looking at it from a standpoint of
what he's done.
Wait a minute, Ralph. Wait a minute,
Look at what he's done.
what?
First of all, the one person in the world who was surprised at Donald Trump's election in 2016 was Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
Because this really had nothing to do with his wanting to be president. He was trying to put together a TV network that was going to be further right than he and Robert Ailes were going to put together. This was all about producing a TV network. This had nothing to do with him being president. He stumbled into the job and was promoted to his level of incompetence because he just had no idea what he was doing, and he had no interest in learning what to do. To say that Black people had Stockholm syndrome for voting for Biden, Ralph, this is where you really got to get off the talking points, and you got to stop with the talking points, man, and you really got to start dealing with reality, because implicit in that statement is that we're stupid. And that is as far from reality as saying that Donald Trump is competent. We overwhelmingly voted for Joe Biden, yes, in opposition to Donald Trump, but also because as intelligent voters, we realized that the Democrats were giving us the most space in which to operate. And so we decided to vote for that space and operate within that space and expand that space. Now, to Kelly's point, we are putting ourselves in a very bad space when we start talking about what is the Biden-Harris ticket going to do for us. That's why I was very clear at the beginning. They won't do anything more than we force them to do.
Right, exactly.
So if we sit back and party and thinking it's all good in the neighborhood, no, sir, we're going to get stuck again.
But what's the impetus now to do anything when you have extracted absolutely no promises from them?
Oh, I agree with you. Let me tell you what, John Clyburn, if I could smack him in the back of his head, I would smack him in the back of his head, because he sold us Joe Biden and got nothing for it. You are absolutely right, Ralph, on that point.
Right.
We know Joe and Joe knows us. Man, get out of here with that foolishness.
Absolutely. Right.
But wait a minute. But that doesn't mean that doesn't mean we're stupid voters.
No, well, I never just because
implicit in your statement when you say that for us to vote for Joe Biden is Stockholm syndrome, you are saying, Ralph Chittums Sr., that we are stupid.
That is not. There is no correlation between those two statements.
Okay, go ahead.
But let's talk about something that Kelly brought up. In Barack Obama's first 2 years in office, Democrats had the White House, they had the Senate, and they had the House of Representatives. Correct?
Correct.
Barack Obama's first 2 years.
Yeah.
Correct.
Those of us who know Barack Obama and Congress could have made Italian the national language of the United States of America, and there wouldn't have been a damn thing anybody could have done about it. The biggest problem I have with Barack Obama is he came in and he was told by Republicans, which was a stupid statement off the break, that we are going to make sure you are a one-term president.
Mm-hmm.
What Barack Obama should have done at that point is he should have put some pool hall chalk on the tip of his shoes and kicked every Republican congressman dead up his you-know-what and used the pulpit that he had for those first 2 years to bully a Black agenda. He didn't do it because he said out of his own mouth, I am not the president of Black America. And then for the next 8 years, he proved it.
Mm-hmm.
Vice president. And now we have his vice president that Black America has now ushered back into the White House, who we have an 8-year track record that you didn't do crap for Black America. You may not like Trump's style. You may not like his tweets. I don't like his style all the time. I don't like his tweets all the time. The other day when he was on TV, I hollered at the screen and told him to shut up.
What do you like? What do you like? What is there to like?
But
We've got almost 300,000 people dead in this country because of his inaction. What do you like?
Now for HBCUs, we have
how much money have they gotten?
Federal prisoners who are being released, predominantly Black federal prisoners who are being released. Prior to COVID, we had the highest Black employment rate in the United States in the history of the United States. So yeah, Donald Trump.
What kind of jobs were those?
I have problems with tweets. But I can say that Donald Trump did not do anything that benefits Black America is a lie.
Okay, but wait a minute, Ralph. Let me do two things with you. First of all, Donald Trump had the House and the Senate first 2 years well. He didn't get anything done with that, except for his tax bill, which Mitch McConnell did, which didn't benefit nobody Black. Secondly, that HBCUs, all Donald Trump did was sign the bill. That was Alma Adams' bill in North Carolina.
But who signed it? It does. If it doesn't get signed by the president,
but the point is that he didn't do it.
Have to sign it.
Yeah, but he didn't do it.
He take credit for it.
He didn't do it. He just signed it.
Who signed it?
He signed it, but
he could have put it
it's not his bill.
In the end of it.
Okay, it's not his bill.
He gets credit for signing it.
Secondly, I'm actually on number 3. Number 3 is, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but prisoners were released, and in fact, their sentences were reduced and some commuted because of first-time offenders and things of that nature under Obama and Eric Holder, because they went in there and changed the laws until Jeff Sessions got back in office, and then he got eliminated that and then start tacking on additional crimes and charging people so they can spend more time in prison.
But didn't Donald Trump sign the Second Chance Act?
Yes,
did that
but again,
not release predominantly Black federal prisoners from
Ralph,
yes, he did.
Ralph, yes, he did. We're agreeing. What I'm saying is he was not the brain trust of it. It was not his idea. All he did was what Mitch McConnell told him to do. So
presidents are the brain trust, but heavy the head that wears the crown. Whoever wears the crown gets the blame, and whoever wears the crown gets the credit.
Okay, so then he should also take the blame for 240,000 people dead, which nobody wants to.
Pump your brakes. Dr. Fauci.
No, not Dr. Fauci.
No. You made a point. Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx both said that if the coronavirus is handled perfectly in this country, this is what they said. This is not Ralph speaking. This is what they said. They said if we have 200,000 deaths in this country, we will have handled the virus perfectly because they projected 2 million. Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx said this. Go back and look it up.
Okay, Ralph.
All right, where are our death totals right now? About 250 million. Therefore, by the words of the professionals themselves, Donald Trump has handled this coronavirus perfectly.
Oh, please.
And do the research, go to Google and look at what those two doctors had to say. And then I can talk to me.
Okay. And then they came back and corrected whatever you just thought that they said, came back and said, this is what we have to do. We have to social distance. We have to put on masks. All right. If we don't, we're going to lose millions. Wait a minute, Ralph.
I didn't change the numbers.
You talk, Ralph.
Handled
Ralph. Come on now, Ralph. You know how we do on this show. You talk, I listen. I talk, you listen. So we did that. Donald Trump has done absolutely nothing. He hasn't handled it perfectly. He has done absolutely nothing to help or to save the lives of Americans. Maya, come on in here. I'm going to skip the question I had for you before because it was all about, Kamala and the excitement and everything else. Jump into this discussion. And so, because I saw your facial expressions.
Well, I mean,
turn up your volume for me. Turn up your volume. But jump on in here and let's talk about this. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. So Donald, the Trump administration response, and I put response in quotes because it's been a lack of has been genocidal. Simply genocidal in terms of the devastation on human beings. We've had more deaths, Americans die from this COVID-19, pandemic than in the recent wars that we've had combined. And there were disproportionately Black and brown people. We had Donald Trump using disinformation and misinformation, saying that people that use bleach to cure it, saying that that crock cures would work, including hydrochloroquine, which turned out to be nothing.
Death wish for some people, for the veterans.
So basically, what we've had is an administration, and by the way, it did come out that they initially considered developing a national plan, but then they figured out that it was hitting blue states more than it was hitting red states, and they decided to drop it because it wasn't worth it. They were okay with people dying in blue states as long as we're blue states. So it's been genocidal. The response has been genocidal. And certainly, I think that the vote that we just saw this last Tuesday and the results were a referendum on their lack of competence when it came to the coronavirus.
Jason, to that point, Jared Kushner actually said that. He said, we saw that it was going to, we were going to do something, but we saw it's going to impact blue states more than red states. So we decided to shelve that and move on. The idea that you have the president of the United States talking about blue states and red states, and he's not going to do anything because blue states are the ones where the problem is, it's not rather than red states, until obviously now, where literally 40 of the 50 states have increased and gotten to points where the rural America, where all his votes are coming from, they don't have any hospitals that can contain them. The positivity rate is like 30 to 40% in like South Dakota, North Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, all these red states, right? 30% positivity rate when Dr. Fauci says if you have anything above 6%, I think it is, right. We're going the wrong direction. Besides this pandemic that we know we're in, that could literally become something where, because of what they wanted to do, would literally be this, was it herd immunity? Mm-hmm. It's like 1 million people die, and then finally we'll get to a point where the virus, what's it called, the vaccination will start being used. It's going to take a year to even get the vaccination out. Right? Thinking about it from the point,
and kill 7 million people in the process.
Exactly. Yeah. Think about it from the standpoint that Ralph was talking about, from the HBCUs to the release of the folks there. Donald, I mean, even if we give you that, I mean, those are two things that we did great. We got it. But what else is there to point to Black America? And what would we have pointed to in a second term, given what we know?
This race was never about policy items. I mean, this was not, you can make all the policies, we can agree and disagree on policy that come out of, whether it's the Republican or Democrat, we can argue about that all day. This is not what this election was about. This election was purely about, do we trust you and do we trust your character? And at the end of the day, when you have a president who says these countries are, S-hole countries, when you talk about a city or state, Baltimore, as if you're not the president, when you talk about all these items, when you separate all these people into categories, when you make statements like there were good people on both ends, all the policy stuff went out the window. All that stuff was out the window. At this point, this race boiled down to, do we trust you? Are you even somebody we feel comfortable with? And are you qualified to be the president? And you have a resounding answer to that. And here's what I would say. This. I was talking to my wife and my staff. When the whole world comes out and celebrates because you gone, that says something. Like that's not about policy. That's about you as a human being. This is what this election was about. We could talk all of policy, Democrat, Republican. He was just a bad person. He was a bad, evil person. That's why he's gone.
Well, the policy was bad too.
Oh yeah. Oh, by the way, the policy was bad too.
So let me ask you, Ralph. Looking at it from the standpoint of the victories there, but you have some of the folks in the party still trying to talk about Donald Trump can take the presidency, can still win, and take it through a legal channel. What is your perspective about that? And do you think that's the right move for your party to do, is trying to go a legal route and then try to get this to Supreme Court so you can get Coney Barrett to say, yeah, we're going to make him president?
Well, I think if anyone looks at some of the challenges dispassionately and just intellectually, there is merit to some of these arguments. For example, my undergraduate degree is in political science.
And then try to get this to Supreme Court so you can get Coney Barrett to say, yeah, we're going to make him president.
As I was saying, I was interrupted.
Yeah,
you study political science, you understand things such as standard deviations, because we have to study statistics when we study political science. In Wisconsin, they had an 89% voter turnout rate, which is 5.5 standard deviation difference from the historic voter turnout. For those of you who have studied political science and statistics, you know that anything over 3% of a standard deviation is virtually statistically impossible. That being the case, with a 5.5 standard deviation, doesn't that merit looking into simply from an intellectual standpoint?
So this has been a historic and unprecedented election on many fronts. But if we're talking about voting, I think it's important to understand that nothing.
I'm having trouble hearing Ms. Cummings. She's breaking up.
Can't hear me?
You're breaking up on Congress.
Oh, wow. I'm so sorry about that. What about now?
Try that.
Now?
Go ahead.
Go ahead and try.
Yeah, so basically, normal elections looking at approximately 50% at the lower end of the voting electorate turning out to vote. This is not a normal election cycle. We had approximately 75% of the eligible voting public turning out to vote. This was unprecedented in terms of its scope. And so certainly we see a lot of deviation in terms of numbers. In terms of margin of error, state by state, et cetera, I mean, I think all of that needs to be taken into in context with regard to the unprecedented turnout. Certainly, the president has the ability to actually basically confirm his loss. And I would expect that is the process that he's going through right now. But certainly, several of the lawsuits have already been tossed out, and we can expect to probably see more of them tossed out as the certifications and then the recounts come through with more information about the final count.
Wilmer, if Ralph is, given Ralph's analysis, that would mean not only would we need to check Biden's votes, but we got to check Trump's too. He got 70 million. He got 6 million more than he got in 2016. So we can't just check Biden's votes. We got to check Trump's too.
And you can't just check the votes in Pennsylvania. You can't just check the votes in Arizona and Nevada. You can't just check the votes in the states where Trump thought he could carry the day and then failed to carry the day. For example, when you look at Arizona, I have been saying for the last 6 or at least 6 years that Arizona was going to trend blue. And I was saying that not because my crystal ball works, even though it does. I was saying that because I was looking at the demographic shifts in the state as people from California are moving into Arizona, as more immigrants are becoming naturalized citizens in Arizona. As you look, if you look at the age demographic, this over the last 2 years, you've had, I think, like 600,000 children of immigrants come of age and come of voting age in Arizona. All of these things were trending to, in fact, if you look at the numbers from 2016, Trump didn't win Arizona. If you look at the number of people that were stricken from the rolls in Arizona, not allowed to vote in 2016 in Arizona, and you look at the ethnic demographic of those people, he didn't win Arizona in 2016. But this year, the turnout was such that the Democrats were able to overwhelm the voter suppression tactics with turnout. And that's what happened in Michigan. Turnout this year overwhelmed the voter suppression tactics. Trump won Michigan in 16, I think, by 10,400 votes. There were 72,000 votes in Michigan that were never counted. And those votes came from Detroit and came from Flint. And we know how they roll in Detroit and Flint. He didn't win Michigan in 2016, if you factor those things in. So what happened with this historic turnout, the historic turnout offset the voter suppression tactics all across this country. So Ralph, your standard deviation of plus or minus 5, I got that. But to Maya's point, this was a historic election, historic turnout. That deviation can easily be explained, and the courts are proving that. They're just dismissing that stuff, saying, "Come on, bring us something better than that."
Well, they haven't dismissed that one.
Well,
and also
okay.
in Pennsylvania.
Oh, no, I know they haven't, but give them a minute.
So Ralph,
But
It's only 1:45.
is that going to be nationwide, or is that only going to be in certain states?
PM. I'm sorry.
Is that going to be nationwide or only in certain states? Because you can't cherry pick states.
I wouldn't care if they did it nationwide. I don't care. Look, all I want is for every legal vote to be counted. That's all I want. That's all I care about.
Right.
And
Do they
every
count illegal votes, Ralph? Do they count illegal votes?
and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris win, God bless them.
But Ralph, do they count illegal votes?
Well, the one of the election commissioners in Georgia at a press conference this afternoon at 3 p.m. admitted that there were votes that were counted in Georgia that were illegal.
And how are they illegal?
Yes, one of the Georgia election officials admitted.
No, how were they illegal?
How were they illegal?
He didn't get into the weeds. He didn't explain it. He just made the statement. All I'm saying is, whoever wins the election fairly and squarely.
This is a solution looking for a problem.
Let me finish.
That's what this is.
If after every legal vote is counted and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are declared the winner, God bless them and peace be the journey. I just want to make sure that every legal vote is counted and every illegal or invalid vote is not counted.
Okay. Okay. And let's look at it. Let me ask you something, Ralph. Is it illegal in this? Is it a felony in this country to cast an illegal ballot?
Is it a felony?
Yes.
I'm not a lawyer, so I can't answer that question.
The answer to the question is yes. It is a felony in this country to cast an illegal ballot. Can you tell me, in the last 10 years, how many people in this country have been arrested and charged with voting illegally?
I can't tell you that. Again,
it's probably less than 10.
It's actually 5. And I can
and that's less than 10. Thank you very much.
2 in Wisconsin, and there was the chief of staff and the campaign manager for Scott Walker. It's the young lady in Texas that they put and gave her, I think, 5 years for when she was on probation or on parole. She didn't know that she could not vote, and she voted. It's the brother in Florida who was the same way. He was released and he voted, and they told him he wasn't supposed to, and he got arrested. And then there's the brother in North Carolina, the dude who fixed the campaign 2 years ago in District 9, right, for Republicans, and that's happened. So out of the 5, 3 of them have been Republicans. In fact, in every case of actual voter fraud, every last one who's been arrested has been a Republican. Only 2 people have been arrested, and they voted by mistake, not knowing, because they had felony records and they were African American, and they got the longest sentence out of all of them. They weren't intentionally voting illegally. They voted by mistake. The 3 intentionally voted illegally.
But
and now, wait, hold on, Rob, and let me add one more. The congressman from Kansas, he's under indictment.
Chris Kobach.
Not Chris Kobach, but the other, he's current congressman. Okay. He's under indictment for voting twice in his own election. And that's 4. All of them are Republican. All of them are white, and all of them have been indicted. The 3 have been arrested and going
to the statistics on illegal voting in this country, 0.00006.
Exactly.
Since you want to quote statistics and standard deviations, that's the percentage of illegal voting in this country. It does not happen. It just doesn't happen. Yes, mistakes are made because it is an imperfect process. But illegal voting in this country statistically doesn't happen.
So this is news straight off the press. Attorney General William Barr has authorized federal prosecutors across the United States to pursue substantial allegations of irregularities before the 2020 presidential election is certified, despite little evidence of fraud. It gives prosecutors the ability to go around long-standing Justice Department policy that normally would prohibit such an overt act before the election is certified. So now we've got the Justice Department trying to turn every
rumor
they have towards going out and prosecuting fraud to try to subvert the election that we just had and to subvert democracy itself.
So, and unless they find 6 million votes out there of fraud, Jason, they just out there doing some shenanigans so they can then try to say we're going to take this to the Supreme Court. And quite honestly, you are going to have a revolutionary civil war going on up in this country if they do some dumb crap like that. And you know what I really want to say.
I mean, it's even if you, number one, even in Wisconsin, if you do a recount, he's not going to make up the difference. Like it's not going to happen. Now what they're trying to do is, I think this is the conservative agenda, strategic agenda, trying to go through all the legislatures across the state to have them change the law to now, give power to the legislature to start to look at these elections. The problem with that is it's disingenuous. There's no viable basis to do this. You can't make up the numbers. Even if you give Donald Trump states, he's still going to fall short on the Electoral College vote. So part of this is, I believe, just like Kelly said in the beginning, they have to keep the momentum because now some of those Republican legislators are nervous, scared, and they have to make sure they protect that base because they didn't know he was going to maintain this kind of power, even though he lost. And so now they don't know how to get away from him. And so now they're not saying anything. They should be telling him, hey, it's over. We lost. It's time to move on. But they're not going to do that because they're afraid. This is going to change nothing.
But this is the irony of it, Maya. If he had won, there'd be no question about voter fraud. They wouldn't be talking about voter fraud. It's only because he lost, they're talking about voter fraud. They're talking about going and investigating. There's no way in hell William Barr would investigate anything, even if he knew there was some illegality going on and Trump won. So the BS that they're pulling here is just strictly that BS. And it's ridiculous because I think they really want to, keep it so that their votes are not certified by December 6th. And then they want to be able to try to shift it to the legislatures so that the legislatures could then put in new electors. But they have to go into session to do that. So correct me if I'm wrong, Representative Fields, and I want Maya to answer, but correct me if I'm wrong. if they cannot call a session on their own unless the governor calls a session. So the governor has to call a session in Wisconsin, in Philadelphia, in these states that Biden won. So if the governor doesn't call a session, they can't go into session to try to change any law. So they're shit out of luck anyway. So Maya, talk to me.
So what's the question? I'm sorry.
So the question is this. I'm sorry, I went through. The question is this. All they're looking to do is try to delay tactics and try to push it forward. And the reality of it is that they would not have been trying to check any ballots had Trump won.
Absolutely. Well, this is absolutely about, and this is, by the way, this is power politics. They're basically, subverting democracy, subverting our Constitution, trampling all over the rule of law to try to push a spurious argument that they can't actually prove. But they're going to test. They're going to test and push anyway. And it's shameful because what we're seeing globally and what the world is seeing is that the democracy that America has held up all of these years and has pushed around the world is basically subject to fraudulent actors too. And so basically be pushing this, by the way, Kelly, Michael, if it weren't Georgia, Philadelphia, and Nevada, I mean, they would love to investigate Black and brown voters. And so what the President of the United States is doing is the same tactic that he's been doing with, states or 6 urban areas, trying to invalidate urban cities being a part of America by trying to invalidate Black and brown voters from disproportionately Black and brown states where the votes brought in the difference, the margin of victory to Biden. So this is just a scam, and it's a scandal at the same time.
Ralph, do you support this idea that the Attorney General of the United States is going against every protocol of the Justice Department to try to investigate voting irregularities or voting fraud, as they call it, when they have no evidence of it? Because in all of the cases that they filed, the 7 to 8 cases that they filed prior to and they claim voter fraud, not one person, not one ballot, not one anything that they bring as evidence to the district court, the state court, or the Supreme Court to validate their claim. Now you're using the Attorney General of the United States to now go around and investigate something that clearly has no validity to it whatsoever. But now, do you support this? And if so, would you have supported the idea of them investigating and looking into fraudulent ballots for Trump the same way you think it should be done for Biden?
Well, first things first, the winner never requests an investigation. It's always the loser. And if Biden had lost, I'm sure that they would have requested some sort of investigation into states that were close. That's just a fact.
They would call for a recall. That's it. They wouldn't have to call for an investigation because they wouldn't have gotten one.
Well, okay, but now in Pennsylvania, the Supreme Court has requested the segregation of ballots received after a certain hour of the day from other ballots, because there is a possibility that those ballots might be invalidated. So to say that every claim of the Trump administration has been spurious and has been knocked down is not true.
No, it is true.
Wait,
that's not a fraud issue. That's a process issue.
What I said before.
Exactly.
I want every legal vote to be counted. I want every invalid vote not to count. And if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are the winners, you will not see me on the street protesting. You will not see me on the street burning up buildings and looting stores and everything else. If he turns out to have been the legitimately elected president of the United States, peace be the journey. Let's answer the questions. Let's get this done in a timely manner, and then let's move on as a country.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Do you literally believe that there are 7 million votes out there that are illegal for Joe Biden?
Well, it doesn't have to be 7 million. It depends upon where there are
How, so
found.
let me go by state. Do you think there's 22 million illegal votes in Wisconsin? I mean, 22,000. You think there's 22,000 or 20,000 plus one? You think there's 20,000 plus one in Wisconsin?
I would say that's a possibility, yes.
Okay. So you think there's 15,000 in Georgia that are illegal?
Well, considering the fact that one of the election officials in Georgia stated this afternoon that they confirmed that there are invalid ballots in the state of Georgia, I think that begs the question that we need to look into the ballots in Georgia. When you have an election official making that admission.
Was he Democrat or Republican, Ralph?
I don't. He's an election official. I don't know what party he's in.
Okay, he's the Secretary of State, so he's Republican. So let me go.
Secretary of State. He was not the Secretary of State.
No, I said he's with the Secretary of State's office, so he's a Republican. So let me go to Pennsylvania. Do you think it's a 36 margin? Do you think there's 36,000 votes in Pennsylvania that are illegal?
Let me ask you that. Let me ask you a question before I answer that question. Do you really think that in Philadelphia that there are precincts where Donald Trump did not get one vote? Not one.
If it's a black precinct, if it's a black precinct in Philly,
one vote in every precinct in Washington, D.C. It is a statistical impossibility that Donald Trump did not get one vote in a number of precincts in Philadelphia. Come on, let's be intellectually honest here.
Let's be honest, Ralph. We're talking about black precincts. There's a possibility that a white man who has been deemed racist would not get a vote in Philly. It is possible. You know how Philly is. We both know how Philly is.
And we know how Washington, D.C. is. And Washington, D.C. is just as black, if not blacker.
Washington, D.C. is, we're open because it doesn't matter because it's a nonpartisan race. We're talking about Philadelphia. Yes, it's possible. But let me ask you this. Do you think in Arizona, there are 10,000 illegal votes in Arizona?
That's a possibility.
And then you also think that there's 10,000, I think it's 10,000, no, it's 22,000 in Nevada that are illegal.
That's probably,
So you think there's illegal votes in Arizona?
I didn't say, I said there's a possibility.
Well,
I'm not saying definitively that anyone did anything illegal. What I'm saying is that there's enough smoke that we need to investigate as to whether or not there's a fire.
Look at, where's the smoke? Where's the smoke? Don't you think by now you found eight cases or eight petitions, right? The Trump administration has filed 8. They filed in Arizona, they filed in Pennsylvania, they filed in Georgia, they filed in Nevada, and they filed in Wisconsin. The state courts. Now in Wisconsin, it's Republican controlled. In Georgia, it's Republican controlled. In Pennsylvania, it's Republican controlled. In Arizona, it's Republican controlled. In every one of those states, Republicans control the state legislature, the courts, in some of those states, it's the governor, the election commission, everything. Do you really think that they would not do everything they can to help Donald Trump win and throw out and keep these cases alive? If there was any evidence, they would have brought the evidence to court. Because that when you file a petition, when you file a brief, you usually put your evidence in with that. So when you go to court, you can then argue the evidence. They went to court and they argued. They got thrown out, Ralph. So where is the evidence for this? Help me out here, Wilmer. You're sitting there quiet. Help me out. I mean, it's a mute.
Well, I'm sitting here quiet out of respect to your process, but also I was trying to run to ground some of this Georgia stuff. And here's what we've got. And this is from one of the, what is this, Channel 11 Alive in Georgia. Small amounts of votes, mostly provisional ballots that had until Friday to be cleared by the voter, have continued to trickle in from various counties over the weekend. It hasn't changed the overall calculus by much, with Biden still leading the state. The office of Governor Brian Kemp is urging the Secretary of State to take a serious look at any and all voting irregularity allegations that have been made, pointing to the closed outcome and the record number of mail-in absentee ballots cast. At this point, no agency in the state has confirmed any cases of voter fraud so far. So this is you're chasing ghosts here, and none of the charges filed by the administration have been held up by the court. We do know that Amy Coney Barrett was put there to side for Trump. We know that she was an attorney working for George Bush in 2000 in Bush v. Gore. We know that Roberts was an attorney working for Bush in 2000 in Bush v. Gore. We know that Kavanaugh was an attorney working for Bush in Bush v. Gore. He's been stacking the court for this moment. We know that. And it doesn't appear as though a case is going to come before the court for them to decide, because there are no merits. What the lower courts are already deciding is there are no merits to these claims. We need to move on.
Kelly, Ralph, I love you, Ralph, but I gotta say, I'm hurt. I'm hurt that you think we that raggedy, that we would screw up 20,000 votes. I am hurt that you think we that raggedy in Wisconsin.
when historically it hasn't happened.
Right. You think that little of us, man.
The next thing you're gonna tell us is what's his name, the former mayor of New York, the president's attorney. Giuliani said the votes may have come from Mars. So yeah, the Viking space probe went to Mars, got these votes, and brought them back. Come on, man.
It's the same amount he won by in your state, Jason. The same amount. I mean, what are we talking about here? Your state showed up, but even black folks didn't vote the way they were supposed to. They still were 5,100 votes shy of what Clinton did in 2016, and he was still able to win. But black folks still didn't even show out the way they could and should have in Milwaukee proper.
No, and in fact, Donald Trump actually got more votes, amazingly, out of more areas in black areas than he had before. And so the idea that it's wrong, or that we screwed up that much. No, I mean, you had a progressive area like Madison, which really carried the state of Wisconsin through, which is, if you look at the demographics of Madison, it's the most progressive liberal place in the state. That's what got him through. In 20,000, even if the recount, it's not going to change anything. Historically, maybe 300 at most.
No more than 400 votes have been changed.
Yeah, so it's not going to change anything. And as much as black folks, they didn't come out hardcore quite honestly, like I really wanted them to. But this is all strategy. And again, Ralph, I'm hurt you think we that raggedy, man. I'm hurt.
And look at the bigger look at part of the bigger picture here in terms of what this is doing. Well, the damage that Trump has done to the image of this country internationally that's already done. But the United States holds itself out, and we know that it isn't true. But it holds itself out as Ronald Reagan said, the shining city on the hill, the beacon of democracy. We traverse the world in many instances claiming to bring democracy at the barrel of a gun. And here we are. We are all, whether it's countries on the continent, whether it's countries in Central and South America, we are forever saying that these so-called socialist countries, their elections are fixed. And look at, they're laughing at Maduro in Venezuela is laughing at us. Rouhani in Iran is laughing at us. Xi in China, Putin in Russia, Cuba, they're laughing at us on the floor of the United Nations. if you read any of the speeches from last week or 2 weeks ago, the 75th anniversary of the General Assembly, and I wrote a piece which called "The Unaligned Nations Have Realigned." All of these countries, we are the laughing stock of the world because of Donald Trump. Ralph, you can't support this dude, man.
Well, I guess
he's selling bad dope in the community.
Well, I guess you didn't see the mass demonstrations in Nigeria in support of this president.
Well, and how many of those Nigerians voted for him?
Well, you're bringing a foreign country saying that they hate us. I'm just saying, I guess you didn't see the hundreds of thousands of Nigerians parading in the streets in support of the president. So you can't argue one thing and then ignore something else. If you're going to bring up A, I'm going to bring up B.
And so, okay, so I mentioned Venezuela. I didn't mention Bolivia, but we can mention Bolivia. I mentioned Iran, China, Cuba. Let's go to France. Let's go to Germany. I mentioned Russia. So that's 8. And you throw in Nigeria. Okay.
Maya.
You want me to go out? Well, I was in Mexico 3 weeks ago on vacation. And let me tell you right now.
You ran across a Mexican who said he liked Donald Trump.
In the heart of Mexico, there is no animus towards the United States or Donald Trump whatsoever. I was just there, boots on the ground, personally. So, I don't sit. I may not have the stats on all of these countries, but you talk about Maduro and Venezuela and all the rest of these countries. Honestly, I don't care what they think. I don't care what what's his face in Trudeau in Canada thinks. I don't care what Merkel thinks. That's the problem that I think we've had here in the United States. We have cared so much what other countries think that we have forgotten that we are the United States of America. We are the 800-pound gorilla in the room. We don't go around on an apology tour kissing the butts of mullahs and dictators. No, we tell them
that game ended. That game is over, Ralph. That on a serious tip, partner. That game is over, man. That isolationist mentality. And we're the 800-pound gorilla in the room. China is kicking our natural bone behind economically. Look at the growth of China's economy, Ralph.
If Biden becomes president and removes all of the tariffs that Trump has placed on their goods, they're going to crush us economically.
The only people that those tariffs hurt were the farmers in Idaho.
Here in the United States. And that's why we're actually basically paying more than $28 billion in reparations to farmers across this country.
Right.
Because of Trump's China policy.
Why would we need to give them a bailout if we were doing so great?
What's your question?
I was saying, why do we need to give the farmers a bailout? 2 bailouts, mind you. 2 bailouts that we gave them, right? Because of the tariffs that he put on China, but they can't do anything.
I know why. Because he was doing that to buy their votes.
Exactly.
Because that money went to agribusiness. That money didn't find its way down to the small farmer. And that went to Archer Daniels Midland.
Okay.
That money, no, he was buying votes with that money.
and all those companies. Maya, moving forward, looking to Georgia and looking at what's coming up here in January and trying to see how these 2 Senate races are going to play out, given Stacey and LaTosha Brown's efforts and what they did down there in Georgia to really pull off something remarkable. Is there still enough out there? 800,000 folks that registered, but is there enough out there for them to get Warnock and Ossoff over the top, given that the Republicans had a split ticket because they're with I can't think of his name, the young lady and the guy, the Republicans, they split that Republican vote. Do we have enough that we can move mountains in Georgia to get them across the line in January?
Yeah, I mean, Warnock, what? Like 12, 15 people in his race on the Democratic side.
Yeah.
So we're talking about consolidating all of the, now it's only two people. It's one against the Republican against the Democrat. You get rid of all of the other people in the race. And so presumably you consolidate all of those voters. If you can keep the turnout level that they were in this last election, then you can push Warnock and John for the top and basically take back the Senate with Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, being a deciding vote. And so, you know, that is a very real possibility. And it's going to take, I think, every Democrat, everybody who's concerned about the balance of power in the Senate across the United States of America to make that happen, with donations, with volunteer support, with, you know, certainly with the voters being turned out in massive levels in Georgia. That it can happen.
It's going to be a power struggle because, you know, Mitch is going to spend some money. He ain't trying. This is his last term. He's going out on his deathbed on this term. This is his last one. And so he's going to be 86 by the time he walk out of here and do it. So is there going to be enough money and funds? Because my concern is the people who crossed over and voted for Biden in Georgia, the white Republicans or white independents are going to be like, yeah, but I want to put some checks and balances on Biden. I don't want him to have everything. Not recognizing and realizing that even when the Senate was, you know, controlled now by Republicans, they moved nothing. They did absolutely nothing for the last 2.5 years. And even no matter what Trump was talking about, no matter what Mitch McConnell was talking about, they moved nothing either except for judgeships. And they didn't do a second coronavirus bill. They did nothing. So the idea that they want to do that again is counterintuitive. But are they going to be willing to say, no, let's give Biden the House, the Senate, and the White House?
So I'm not exactly sure the percentage of Republicans who actually voted for Biden in the state. I don't imagine it was a large number in Georgia. That being said, you know, there are motivated Democrats across the United States. We saw that in terms of Biden's historic fundraising. The Democrat, he actually outraised Donald Trump at the end of the day.
Right.
You know that in Senate races, you know, in South Carolina and other places that we were huge sums of money. I expect that there will be a mobilization that's unprecedented in terms of donors and in terms of volunteer support to focus on Georgia. And I think that Warnock and Ossoff are going to get this basically a whole lot of money. And so whatever the Republicans are going to do in terms of Mitch McConnell spending, I think that the Democrats are going to be able to go toe to toe. Now, will they spend it correctly and will they do it correctly? That's the question.
Right.
Hey, Kelly,
go ahead.
This is from the Chicago Council on Global Affairs. Mexicans have distinctive views of Trump in the United States. U.S. President Donald Trump is not a popular man in Mexico. According to a survey conducted by the Washington Post and Mexico's Reforma newspaper, 3/4 of Mexicans, 77%, said they have a bad opinion of Trump. 8 in 10, 81% say his treatment of Mexico is disrespectful. And Mexico's President AMLO is having a hard time dealing with his impetuous northern neighbor. Now, that doesn't reflect how Mexicans view the United States-Mexico relationship, but that is a study on Mexicans can't stand Donald Trump.
And all I'm going to say is the Washington Post. Really.
So let me go with this with you, Ralph. Do you see Mitch trying to do to Biden what he was doing to Obama and just stalemating, blocking everything? Do you think that's going to bode well for him and the Republican Party coming up to a midterm where they have like 33 Senate races up? Do you see them doing that, or do you see them actually trying to compromise, given the history that Biden and Mitch McConnell have, and that Senate that Senate partnership that they try to play on all the time?
Honestly, at this point in history, I don't see how this bodes well for Americans under any circumstance, regardless of how it ultimately concludes.
You don't see what bodes well?
How the future for America bodes well, regardless of how this presidential election is ultimately concluded. I think regardless of whether Biden is ultimately declared the winner or whether Trump is ultimately declared the winner. I think the loser in this entire affair is going to be the American people.
And our democracy, by the way. And this is why. And it's because Donald Trump has trampled over our democracy. He doesn't care about our norms. And he is willing to fight foreign actors and, stonewall through legal means and other try to gain. And he has called into question the validity of the system itself. And so, yes, I agree with you that democracy is suffering, and so is the American people.
And Kelly, I think the problem if I understood your question, you're looking at 2022.
Well, I'm looking like right now. So when we look at the current makeup, and let's say Mitch McConnell keeps the Senate, and Biden is trying to get his policies through, is Mitch going to work with Biden, or is he going to block him like he blocked Obama?
Yes.
And with that, what is that going to mean for the GOP come 2022 and those 33 seats coming up?
It means that they're going to do in 2022 what they did in 2018. They're going to regain. They're going to strengthen their hold in the Senate, and they'll probably lose the House because Americans right now are looking for Biden-Harris to improve their quality of life. And history of the Democrats recently shows me they don't fight. They don't pull out knives and razors. They don't do scorched earth. They try to play fair. They try to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. And Mitch McConnell ain't singing Kumbaya. When we're Democrats are turning the other cheek, and Mitch McConnell is just gonna slap you on the other side of your face. So they better come in locked and loaded, and they better. Let me tell you this: I think they've already failed. They've already failed because look at Joe Biden ran more as a Republican than he did as a Democrat. He's trying to figure out how he's going to fit John Kasich into his administration.
Yeah.
Why? So that he can dance with Mitch McConnell. Bad move, homeboy. Bad move.
Oh, we saw how that.
John Kasich is a Democrat. So let's play that game.
Go ahead, Mariah.
That Biden has the potential to make the same mistake that Barack Obama did, by the way. Barack Obama came in backwards trying to appease the Republicans,
Right. Because
he wanted to claim that he was bipartisan.
Right.
Being fair.
To hell with that. We need to just go in like that and just go straight guns and, what is it? Not Guns and Roses, go straight down the middle.
There needs to be a tough Democratic currently is not there, and it hasn't been there. And I
Did you go to Howard?
Huh?
You're so smart. Did you go to Howard?
No, I went to Prairie View and
Texas girl. That's a Texas girl right there. Prairie View and
I thought you were in the political science department at Howard.
But my political science graduate at Howard University.
Yeah, that I do know.
So anyway, with that being said, Democrats have to grow. They have to grow some.
Right.
Because what this is asymmetrical political warfare. And the Republicans have figured out that they can make the rules up as they go along, just as long as it advances their power. And Democrats are still holding strong to old rules, and there are no rules in this environment. And they're getting their butts kicked, except for this election. The question is, will they be able to manage the process of now administering government? And so it remains to be seen if they have the wherewithal.
And they lost seats in the House. What happened to the blue wave?
Yeah, they lost seats in the House, and
was going this way.
It's like they're not like Wilmer said and like mine said, they're not fighting the good fight. They're trying to appease and make it work so they can bring the country together and bring the party together, which is great. But they need to go out there and fight and do something. They need to really kick some
They need to stop attacking the progressive part of the Democratic Party such as AOC, and when you look at Ilhan Omar, who helped the Democrats in Minnesota, when you look at Rashida Tlaib, who helped the Democrats in Michigan, and now they want to attack the progressive side of the party. That makes absolutely no sense unless they're actually just trying to protect their financial interests and their benefactors, and they're not really concerned about substantive policy for the base of their party. Something like 70% of Democrats want Medicare for all. And the Democrats come out and say, oh, absolutely not. We have to stop talking about that. Well, if 70% of your party wants it, what are you doing? And why are you doing it?
Well,
That doesn't make any sense.
is that, let's be honest, Joe Biden is probably not going to finish his first term if he's inaugurated as president of the United States. Now, whether he perishes in office or whether or not the 25th Amendment is invoked and he's removed from office, Donald Trump.
That's what you meant. That's what you meant.
Joe, if he is inaugurated,
Only his ass is going to get the 25th
January of 22. And
Right.
the party is going to go lurking to the left. And so you, Wilmer, will get
Right.
exactly what you want, because the Marxist wing of the party, AOC, Tlaib, and Rashida, and the rest of them, and Harris, will then have control of the party, and the Democrats will go completely left, just as you want them to do. So all I would say to you is just wait, be patient. They're going to push this old man out of the White House, and you will get what you want. Just give it about 12 months.
Jason.
The Democrats is their problem is you're right, they don't know how to fight. And because you have those factions between the Democratic Party, which is those sort of centrist folks, and then you got those super progressives, and it's the same thing we have here in Wisconsin. It's really a disconnect with the people. And the Democrats haven't done a good job of understanding
Right.
what people are where. So in Wisconsin, one of the reasons they haven't understood that in Milwaukee in particular, it's not as progressive as they will tend to believe. Whereas in Madison is different. And they haven't done a good job of dealing with people on and inspiring people. So it's one of those things where Democrats, and they don't stick together. You talked about it earlier, Kelly, and I see the same thing happening where at one point I was pissed because they just turned their back on Obama. They just left him out there.
Yeah.
They do the same thing with Joe Biden. And what you see is, and this is the blessing and curse, Republicans are typically the same people. So they all march to the same tune. And
Yes, you do.
Ralph, you saying no, but
Ralph, you came on here with nothing but talking points.
You guys fall in line. And you do.
There is a civil war growing inside of the Republican Party.
Ralph,
So that
hold on.
means that the Republicans walk lockstep.
No, they don't.
Foolishness.
Step with exactly what Mitch McConnell tell you to do. It don't matter if you red, blue, yellow, or green. You guys lock in step. You do exactly what the hell he tell you to do. You don't.
What a talking point, Wilmer. That's the talking point.
You don't change.
Oh no, that's a fact.
This is actually what you do.
Fact.
The truth of the matter is, Ralph, if you guys were so independent like Democrats are, unfortunately, you would have voted his ass out and put Mike Pence in there.
Right.
Hey,
And-
Kelly, let me give you an example. Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham said Trump is a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot, a toxic mix of demagoguery and mean-spiritedness and nonsense, and doesn't know the difference between truth and lies. That's Lindsey Graham in 2016.
He did a complete
But when
180.
Donald Trump got elected,
Right.
he fell right in line,
Right in
and
line.
now he's right there with him, kissing his ass every single day.
And Kamala Harris said that Joe Biden.
We're not talking about that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the Republicans.
And one thing and another, Kamala Harris said that Joe Biden was a racist He was a pig.
No, actually,
And now all of a sudden, she's now kissing his ass to use your.
And because the elite of the Democratic Party do the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody's saying that the Democrat, Ralph, nobody said that the Democrats don't do it. You just won't admit that the Republicans do it.
Exactly. Right.
Now,
I didn't say Kamala. You're absolutely right what you said about her. You are absolutely right. And I'll even go as far as to tell you this. I don't know why Joe Biden picked her to be his running mate. Anybody who can't get 3% of a vote in a primary, what do they bring to the game? I couldn't figure that one out.
On the ticket so that black people would vote emotionally and he'd be able to get the.
See, there you go with the stupid Negro comment again, man. And then you got to stop that, Ralph. You got to stop that, Ralph, because you're disparaging your own people, man. We are not mindless, stupid voters. You got to stop that, dude. I can't sit here and let you say that about black people.
Nothing else. You got all folks talking about.
Come on, man. Come on. No. You can't do that. You can't do that, Ralph.
Elected Congress, she came into Congress bragging about being the first Indian. And all of a sudden, overnight, like Rachel Dolezal, he's now, I'm black.
Ralph, I don't debate that with you.
Now tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
I just said I don't debate that with you, Ralph. You got to get the Republican cotton out of your ears and listen, man. You're not going to sit here and say that black people are stupid voters, man. You're just, because that makes you stupid.
Right. But here's the deal.
That makes you stupid.
I didn't Joe Biden and Kamala Harris because I knew better.
Ralph, what is the base of the Democratic Party?
The base of the Democratic Party?
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to figure out right now.
No, Ralph, don't act stupid, Ralph.
Any Republican since when? Since Nixon?
Ralph,
we're trying to figure out what is the base of the party.
You know what the base of the Democratic Party is. Don't act stupid. What's the base of the Democratic Party?
I don't act stupid. I just stated the fact.
What is the base of the Democratic Party? State the fact.
The fact is that's what the Democrats are trying to figure out because of the discussion you just had talking about progressives or is it moderates. And also when you throw in the fact that
let me make it easy for you. Right?
Votes since I think Nixon, if the question comes back to be asked, who is the base of the Democrat Party?
I'm gonna give you multiple choice. Is it black women, white women, black men, or white men?
If those are my only choices,
okay, wait a minute, or none of the above.
What is none of the above? You just gave me 4 choices.
Right? What is there? What other choice is there, Ralph?
You have economic choices.
Cisgen and
working class. You just can't break everything down in those little nice, neat little.
It was a real simple question, bro. It was a real simple question.
The statistician.
There's a plus or minus 5%.
You know, it's a real simple question.
Because it's not a simple question.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
It's multiple choice. Black women, white women.
You're creating a full choice.
All right, Jason.
Multiple choices in that. Is it black women? Is it white women? Is it black?
Right, let me do it this way. The
Democratic Party is black women.
Let me change it.
Is it wealthy? Is it middle class? Is it working class?
I didn't ask you that, Ralph. I didn't ask you that. Let me ask you this. What's the base of the Republican Party?
The base of the Republican Party, that's also in flux. That's why we're getting ready to have a civil war inside the party for control.
All right, so Jason, what's the base of the Democratic Party?
Black women.
And how do they vote? And what percentage do they vote in?
91, 90, something.
That's why Joe Biden picked the black woman.
Yeah.
Okay, right there.
Because
he needed 91% of the black women, the base of the party, to vote for him. Just like Republicans need 91% of white men to vote for them. That's their base. And that's what they played to. That's what Trump played to. And that's why Trump was able to get white men, the uneducated, dumbass white men, that he calls them dumbass. That was his words, not mine, in a rally where he said, I like the ones that are uneducated. That's what his base is. The educated white men left his ass and came over to the Democratic Party and voted a split ticket. White women suburbans split their ticket and they came over to the Democratic Party too. Anyone, now you notice this, Ralph, only in the Republican Party do you guys value uneducated people. Whereas you would then turn to then point like Wilmer said, where you're going to sit here and accuse black people as being uneducated or stupid for voting for Biden and Kamala, whereas their base is African Americans.
But you just said that Joe Biden picked Kamala Harris because she's black and a woman, and he needed her to get the black vote. For a black to vote her intellectually, they voted her because of identity politics. That meant their vote was intellectual.
What's your base? What's your base? What's the Republican base, Ralph? White men. It's not economics. It's white men. It has nothing to do with economics.
But you also, in your little rant a minute ago, you did say it was economic because you made a distinction between uneducated and educated, which means that there's a wealth disparity between the two. So there's also an economic factor in there. See, that's why it can't be answered because you can't reduce it to simple numbers.
What I'm saying is that that's how you guys have identified your base. We didn't identify the Democratic base that way. The Democratic base is black women. And as you know, black women vote in large numbers for the Democratic Party, but also black women are the largest group of small business owners. So it's not uneducated.
And thanks to Donald Trump, that number has exploded in the last 4 years.
What number?
The number of black women entrepreneurs. Look at the SBA stats.
Let me bypass that. Let me go to you, to Jason. How do we defeat the GOP in Georgia come January? What do we need to do?
You know, number one, I think you need to keep this momentum, and they really need to figure out what's going to keep people passionate about going back to the polls. I mean, because I'll tell you, the Republicans have it. You know what I mean? Republicans have the passion, and if after a loss, it's nothing more like making sure you don't lose again. So they have to continue and feel like the battle's not won yet. You know what I mean? You got to make sure that the people in Georgia feel like, look, we still got some more to go. It's not over. And if they don't do that, then people start to get relaxed, and that's where you'll lose.
Wilmer, you got 70 million people who voted for Trump, even with the racist rhetoric and 250,000 people dead, things like that. What's that going to say to us? Because you got 20 million people unemployed, 100 million people who are on health care with pre-existing conditions, and you have a hearing tomorrow in the Supreme Court with Amy Coney Barrett with the ACA that's going to come up. And probably by the end of the year, they will have ruled on what they're going to do with this. How should Democrats either use that or play on that come in January? But more importantly, what does it say about America with 70 million people vote for someone who has been, as I think Andrew Gillum said, racists call you racist. I didn't call you a racist. So, how do we deal with that? How do we as Americans actually look at and realize that 70 million people voted for this man and he only lost by a razor in a few states?
Well, that too many Americans would rather eat their racism than sit down and have a fine meal, and that their blindness and their allegiance to their whiteness is costing them dearly in terms of their quality of life, and that they keep voting. I mean, that's Thomas Frank's book, What's the Matter with Kansas? Is how did all these white folks in Kansas vote for Ronald Reagan when he was basically decimating the economy in their state? And so that's what people have to come to grips with, and at some point, folks got to come to grips with the fact that America is and always has been a racist country, and until Americans since we got here in 1690, first of all, the whole idea of race is an artificial construct. It doesn't exist. There's no biological definition or support for the construct. It was created to rationalize oppression primarily by Europeans in this country. That's where the whole idea came from. So until that gets addressed, this problem is going to continue to exist. And to Jason's point about Georgia, Joe Biden needs to come up with some serious, clear policy to explain to people in Georgia why control of the Senate for the Democrats is important. What is that? What will get passed? How will that being passed improve the quality of life for people in Georgia? That's what they have to explain. And if he comes up with something lame, like now he just announced his COVID panel as though he just found out 3 weeks ago that COVID existed. I mean, he should be out here already saying what the program's going to be. So, man, he's behind the 8 ball.
Yeah,
he's behind the 8 ball.
He's been too busy flip-flopping between a national mask mandate and then saying, "Oh, I can't do it," "Oh, yes, I can," "No, I can't," "Yes, I can."
I agree with that.
So, Ralph, what's gonna come up on Georgia? Is your people gonna as Jason said, you guys have something to fight for? You mad because you lost, so now you coming out?
No, I told you before, I'm not making any predictions. What I've said, and I'm going to repeat myself ad nauseum. All I want is for every legal vote to be counted, every invalid vote not to be counted, and whoever wins at the end of the day, at the end of this process, will be the president of the United States. End of discussion.
All right.
And I think that's reasonable.
We're gonna count all those legal votes, Ralph. We're gonna make sure they're legal for you. I'm gonna watch them personally because I like you. You're my boy. I like you.
I mean, that's what we all want as Americans. We all want an election process that is clear and clean. That's all we want. And once that's been determined, whoever wins, as I said earlier in the show, God bless them. You're in charge. We're going to hold your feet to the fire. You know, I'm not going to be out looting a Kmart trying to get a big screen TV. Some of my good Democrat friends, whenever they lose an election, they go out and have to riot and burn. Hey, you be the president. If
Go out there, Jason, and get them people.
I gotta go, man.
All them votes, man.
I gotta go because I got looting I gotta do. I gotta go.
Okay. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you.
Jason, I start looting at 8:40.
What's at stake for us, Jason?
Thank you.
You know what? I think it's everything from the policy to where we go. And, it's incumbent on us. And I think everybody hit on it, that we have to start having our agenda and the plan before we start putting all these people in office, man, because once they hear, it's almost
too late. It's too late.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you where you can go to get the plan. Go to the Gary Convention, 1972. The plan was written there. The plan's already there, and what was written at the Gary Convention needs to be tweaked a bit because the data has changed, but the issues are still the same. Unfortunately,
I have a stack of Ebony magazines, the original Ebony's, the big ones, with the 11 by 17.
You don't look that old.
I'm not. My I got my uncle. He saved them all. So he has all these Ebony magazines that he gave me that I was just so interested in because I'd never seen them before. I'm like, wow, what is this? He's like, oh, these are Ebony. I'm like, what? So I have, and clearly we're still talking about the same issue that we were talking about then, and we're dealing with the same circumstances for it. Ralph, what's at stake for us?
Well, honestly, it depends on the us. What's at stake,
Ralph? Black folks. What's at stake for black folks, Ralph?
What's at stake for black folks? If Joe Biden and Kamala Harris get in the White House, what's at stake is what is he going to do for you for your blind allegiance? What's he going to do? You gave it to him for nothing. You demanded nothing. He promised nothing. Well, what are you going to get? That's what's at stake for black folks if Biden actually happens to pull this out.
It's already pulled out, Ralph. It's not going to be overturned unless you guys go to court and just lie about it and just steal it. It's already done. All right, Wilmer, what's at stake for us, man?
Well, to a great degree, with the exception of the whole stupid black people voting thing, I think Ralph has a very good point. Is that we voted for Biden not because we're stupid. We voted against fascism. That's one thing. We voted against a fascist Donald Trump. We voted against uber nationalism. We voted against hyper partisanship. We voted against a dictator. We voted against corporate interest and control in our government. If you look up the definition of fascism, that's pretty much what it is. So we voted to stop fascism in this country. And we voted for space in which to operate, because we know under the Trump administration, for us, zero space to operate, zero interest for us to progress. So we're voting for space in which to operate, and then we expand within that space. That's what we voted for, because we are conscientious, concerned voters. We are not just ignorant sheep like Ralph wants to continue to try to make us out to be.
So what? Okay.
Your turn, Jason.
I had Jason. Mine had some connection problems, so we had to go over there. We're looking at 9 seats lost, red states coming up, and certainly the midterms are going to be crazy, because I really think Democrats will probably lose the House in 2022 with a lot of those seats that they picked up in 2018 because they were red seats. And I don't know that they have a plan or a program to put it together. Depends on what happens in this first 2 years of what's going to happen. If they get the Senate and they can really put some stuff together and do some progressive policies to get the progressive in. And I usually end with what's at stake, but let me say this, Wilmer, and check me on this. How does the party decide that they're going to embrace their progressiveness, embrace their moderateness, right, and still have that ability to talk about the issues in their respective districts? They feel like it has to be one issue or one policy perspective that has to carry throughout the whole issue, like the Republicans do. Republicans have their 3 main: guns, abortion, the courts, and you're gonna stick with that, and you're gonna stay with that, and you're not gonna. I mean, so many of them will vote for just one issue alone and disregard everything else. Whereas Democrats never do that. They have to have the whole ball of wax. They can have all 3. They have to have all 4. They never vote just one issue and leave it. So that's why they're always splitting tickets and not voting and doing everything else. What and how do Democrats coalesce, keep their progressive, grow it, keep their moderates and grow it, and just use that to be able to build a cohesive party rather than splitting it and always going in different directions?
Well, they have to stop being schizophrenic, and they have to start being consistent. And what I mean by that is, since the election of Bill Clinton, the Democratic Party has been moving further and further and further right, whether it was the DLC or whether it was Barack Obama and Joe Biden under Barack Obama. They've been steadily moving the Democratic Party to the right. And what they need to understand is this whole socialism tag and all that kind of foolishness. Look, in the midst of climate change, you do need a Green New Deal. And I use that term in lowercase, not in the actual formal Green New Deal plan, but you do have to start speaking to ecological issues, because otherwise we're all going to be underwater. In the midst of a pandemic, you should have figured out that universal health care is important. When 185,000 people a week during the Trump administration have been filing for unemployment every week since July. 185,000 people have been filing for unemployment, which means what? They've lost their health care.
Right.
So these are some fundamental consistent things that very few people will argue about conceptually. It's a matter of, how do you structure policy and convince these folks that this is in their best interest? If the Fed can give 0 interest loans to Goldman Sachs and the financialized side of this economy, with this whole foolish trickle down economics, what George Bush called voodoo economics, why don't we try trickle up? Because most economists that you talk to will tell you the way you salvage your economy is not by awarding hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars in tax cuts to businesses to create business, which they haven't done.
They don't.
You do it by bottom up. Right. That way people demand product, that businesses can provide.
Yeah. With that, I want to thank my guests, Dr. Wilmer Leon, Dr. Maya Cummings, Representative Jason Fields, and my good friend Ralph Chettam Sr. This is what we're talking about. Black America, where are we? What are we going to do? We have to look and look beyond where we are right now, because certainly the Senate race is going to be important. What happens with this administration and where it takes us is going to be important. Ralph makes good points in terms of economic areas and suggestions. Of course, as Wilmer said, we're not stupid, and we don't kowtow to the ball and chain of what the Republican Party is. And certainly, as the case in 2016, we certainly don't kowtow to the ball and chain of what the Democratic Party is. We know how to sit our asses at home and make you suffer, and then we know how to come out with the idea of not wanting a dictator, a fascist, a liar, a racist, and so many other things with that.
An idiot.
And we want to be able to take care and move forward. I'm saying to you guys, if you're out there, if you're in Georgia, if you're in Mississippi, if you're in Alabama, wherever you are, get your butts to Georgia. I'm going right after mid-December, and I'm going back in January for the get out the vote to make sure that we do something to try to make sure that not only we get another African-American senator, but that we can actually get some policy and progress through. Because certainly if we don't do that, if Mitch McConnell is left in charge of the Senate again, we already know what he's going to do. He's already done it. It's no big secret. He's already told us that he's going to block Biden. He already said it. And he's willing to block him and willing to take the chance to see what happens in 2022. Unfortunately, like Jason said, Representative Field, Democrats need to learn how to fight. As Maya Cummings said, Democrats need to learn how to fight. And as Wilmer said, they need to learn how to kick some behind, because they don't do it. They fighting with kid gloves. They're not bringing a knife to a gun battle, and they're not understanding what's at stake. And quite frankly, everything is still at stake. Even though we won the election, everything is still at stake. And for those of you who voted in this election, those of you who came out, those of you who were excited, who were cheering, who were dancing in the street, do not give up on this ticket like you gave up on Obama-Biden ticket. The midterms are places where you need to be, just like it's a presidential election, because your life depends on it, your courts depend on it, your livelihood depends on it, your house, your health care, everything that was important to you in 20 is going to be more important to you in 2022. So get your behinds out there, do what you got to do, because certainly if you have a pre-existing condition, your butt's about to be on the chopping block come tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. when the U.S. Supreme Court listens to California versus Texas and a healthcare battle to get rid of the entire healthcare system of the Affordable Care Act. And if you think about if you are a recipient of what you're able to get through the ACA, if they vote that out and the Supreme Court decides that it is unconstitutional after they already decided it was constitutional, you're pretty much SOL, as my grandmother used to say. You're just SOL. So get out there, do something about it. I want to have you join me and help me as we get ready for this new year, as we rebrand and move forward, and the Black Reset. We're going to put forth the Black Reset. We're going to work together with people like Ralph, because I believe that regardless of what party you are, GOP or the Democrats, we need to come together and support and build up Black folks. And so we have to get out there and get the Black Reset. And I want you to text me at TBR20, a space your first name, a space your last name, and a space your email address. TBR20, first name, last name, email to 59769. Text us there if you're going to support us, if you want to help us out to make sure that we go about and putting together plans, programs, agendas, and things like that to make sure that we're not left behind. Representative Fields, we're going to be working with him. I'm going to try to coax Wilmer in there. His magnitude of all his understanding, we want to get him in there too. And Ralph as well, because we need to make sure that we do what we have to do for ourselves. That's why I titled it the Black Reset. We have to reset our whole agenda as Black folks, and we have to go out there and do something about it. So text us at TBR20, first name, last name, email address to 59769. Make sure you put a space between TBR20, your first, last, and email, and send that to us, and we'll send your email. Collectively, we'll get it together, and we'll do something about it. Until next time, we're going to start doing the rebranding, putting everything together, and we're going to try to do this every week where we're live through Zoom or StreamYard every week for our show, so that you can hear our panelists, see our panelists, and truly engage yourself. Come 2021, we're going to look forward to putting that forward. So we want to sign off now. We want to thank you for joining us. Keep us in your mind. Keep us in your prayers. Support us. Keep us watching, listening to us every week, Monday night. Subscribe to our magazine, Black Politics Today magazine, the only political news magazine that we've ever had in print or digital that's out there right now. Go to our website and subscribe right now. Until next week, if it's social, economic, or political, it's Black Politics Today. I want to thank my guests again. Thank them. I appreciate you, Wilmer. Thank you, Maya. Thanks, Jason. Rev, love you, my brother. Take care of your mom. Take care of your mom, too. All right, you too, Jason. Take care of your mom, and we'll see you next week. Until then, right? Good night.
Thank you for listening to Black Politics Today on Eye for What's at Stake in Global Politics with your host, Kelly Michael Williams. Join us live each Monday from 7 to 8 p.m. Until next time, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and download us on iTunes at Black Politics Today.